Welcome in to Gridiron Icon. It is holiday week. Christmas is just days away, and we're squeaking in another one of our Wednesdays. Not drinking coffee today, actually drinking tea, peppermint tea. And we just got to talk about some of the great highlights this week from the NFL. We had some good ones. I'm going to start with, I know this will shock everybody, got to start with my Rams versus the Seahawks on Tuesday afternoon. And I mean, what a weird week. We've got games on Monday. We had two games Monday. We had a couple of games Tuesday running simultaneously at the same time. This isn't stuff any of us are used to, but COVID and COVID protocols have basically been blowing up the NFL the last week or two. There have been teams missing literally a dozen players or more, and it's not over yet. The Rams got back a couple of players just in time for the game, and Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey got news the day before. So the Rams had their best defense out there on the field. They were still missing a couple of players, Sebastian Joseph Day, as well as others. But overall, they had most of their starters. Still missing some players on offense. But again, what a weird week for the NFL. We're talking football on Wednesday, and the games aren't even 24 hours old. The Rams and Seahawks played yesterday. And interesting game. Some observations on that, and I certainly want to hear from Rams fans and get some feedback on what they saw in this game. I thought it was an interesting game with the Rams and the Seahawks. And I guess my question is at this point, did the Rams look good? Because there certainly was some great plays. I'll get into Cooper Kupp, who's just absolutely incredible, and in my opinion should be part of the MVP conversation. We're going to talk about that towards the end of the episode here this week. But did the Rams look good? There was times that they looked amazing, and it seemed to be tied directly to the running game. When Sean McVay sticks to the running game, he sticks to play action passing. The Rams seem to be in their element, and they look like they can roll anybody. Game started with Sony Michel, even though Darrell Henderson came back off of his injuries as well as COVID protocol. He was another one. And Sony Michel got the start. Michel started out strong. He definitely is great between the tackles, but Sony Michel showed us what he showed us when he was at Georgia, and he was part of that great running back room with the Georgia Bulldogs. He can break them. He had a couple of really nice runs that included broken tackles, a little shiftiness in the open field. He even threw in some really solid stiff arms as he broke loose and got into the defensive backs. But the Rams, here's the thing. Do they look good? You can see the talent. You can see that the Rams have the pieces. But from where I sit, I started to see some of the same old problems or some of the same old patterns start to rear its ugly head in the second quarter. Then in the third quarter, they seem to get their act together. And I'm just going to come out and say it. When Sean McVay gets away from that 12 personnel, that extra offensive lineman, the running game as a whole, things seem to slow down. They get bogged down. When he starts going to those open, empty sets and he puts all the pressure on Matt Stafford, you start to see some problems on offense. The Rams are loaded across the board, and this game ended at 20-10. And this game was still a game in the third quarter. I'm just going to come out and say it because I actually had some exchange with Mike Silver on Twitter, and I agree with him. I know that shocks everybody. But this officiating in the NFL, it's getting egregious. Look, I'm a Rams fan. I'm not shy about it, even on this podcast. And I was absolutely blown away at how bad the officiating was last night. In the third quarter, fourth quarter, the Rams and Seahawks were still in a game. It was a tight score. It was 10-10 for the longest time. And the Rams, buried deep in their territory, seemed to get the benefit of a defensive pass interference or a holding call on Cooper Kupp that upon review was just pathetic. And the Seahawks were down on defensive backs due to injuries and whatnot. The officials did them no favors. You still saw some really, really crappy officiating. That call bailed the Rams out on a 3rd and long, continued the drive. They got the go-ahead score and went ahead 17-10. as the game was playing out and Russell Wilson was putting a drive together, final play, one of the final plays of the game for the Seahawks was the final play. They get a very obvious pass interference from Ernest Jones, who did not turn his head around. Granted, terrible pass from Russ to DJ Dallas, but Dallas absolutely lost his marbles. Then they got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty after he kicked the football. He was angry that Ernest Jones basically blocked him from catching the pass, even though it was a bad pass, even though it's not likely he would have caught it. Ernest Jones did not have his head around. And when you looked at it in slow motion, he took a swipe at Dallas's arms well before the ball got there. So the Rams, despite looking like easily the better team on the football field, got the benefit of officiating. And, you immediately go right to Twitter because you're expecting Saints fans to just be losing their marbles over the NFC Championship round from a few years ago when the Rams went to the Super Bowl and Roby Coleman, rather, got a really egregious DPI on the receiver. We all remember the moment. It was not pretty. The Rams seemed to get almost another one last night, and Seahawks fans were just losing their marbles on social media. And frankly, as somebody who is a Rams fan, I think that those two calls by the officials really helped the Rams put the game out of reach for the Seahawks and essentially end the Seahawks season. And I'll tell you, I want to ask if maybe we've seen the last of Russell Wilson against the Rams as a Seahawk, because he did not look good last night. And it's very obvious that if he's not making plays off schedule or he's having a rough night, he had 150, 160 yards passing, that the Seahawks are going to struggle. So let's stay with the Rams here for a minute, because I want to hear from you Rams fans. And aside from the officiating errors, aside from what looked like McVay was going to slide into some questionable play calling there for a few minutes, the Rams came out and looked like a very talented football team, and they should look like a very talented football team. Let's be real here. They got Odell Beckham in there. They've got Cooper Kupp. Half their starters weren't even playing. They still look better. Tyler Higbee's still not there. Rob Havenstein at right tackle, still not playing. Bobby Evans filled in for him. Looked a little rough, got some penalties there. But the Rams looked like the better team on the football field. So Rams fans, let me ask you this. 2 questions. Did you see a pattern start to rear its ugly head with McVay with the play calling? I don't think 20-10 is a beatdown, and I think that the Rams have the talent and should have really beaten down the Seahawks, who didn't even have Tyler Lockett. I mean, they just didn't have anything. They don't have half their running back room out for the year. Chris Carson gone. The Rams really shouldn't have been getting help from the officials to pull this one out, despite the fact that they're way more talented. But let's stick to the offensive side of the ball for a minute. Rams fans, who do you want to see as the starter at running back? Darrell Henderson came back last night. He did not start. He's had the injury. He's had the COVID protocol situation, but he didn't start. Sony Michel started the game, and he looks like a guy that is just starting to get comfortable. Now let's run through the stats for a minute, because I think as the running game goes for the Rams, the offense goes for the Rams. I think it goes without saying, doesn't it, at this point? So Henderson in 11 games this year has got 140 carries, 671 yards. He's got a 4.5 yard average and 5 touchdowns. Darrell Henderson has looked good when he played. Now, he doesn't seem to have the power of a Sony Michel. They look like 2 very different running backs when they're running the ball. But Darrell Henderson has looked good. He does, in my opinion, look like maybe he's more of a third down back. He catches the ball really well out of the backfield, but so does Sony Michel. So that's a quick look at Henderson's numbers. He came in and backed up Michel in limited duty last night. But Sony Michel in 14 games, and keep this in mind, Sony Michel has been the backup up until Henderson's injury. So when you think of these numbers, keep that in mind. He's played in 14 games. Again, most of those as a backup, limited time in 4 or 5 of them. But with 141 carries, he's got 597 yards. He's got a 4.2-yard average and 2 touchdowns. He also has shown that he's really good catching the ball out of the backfield. So you're not getting a drop-off with Sony Michel in the running game. Again, some of the factors are McVay's play calling. Sony Michel has benefited in the last few games with his 12 personnel, the extra offensive linemen, the extra tight end. We're even seeing, we saw Kendall Blanton. We've seen Bryson Hopkins, who was buried in the doghouse, apparently, in Los Angeles. He actually got a catch last night. You're seeing McVay mixing in that running piece, that 12 personnel, the more blockers. So Michel has benefited from that, but that's not telling the complete story. So if you're a Rams fan and we're in the home run stretch here in December, still got a shot at the NFC West title because the Cardinals lost to the Detroit Lions, which is unfathomable, and are now in trouble. They dropped from the 1 seed to the 4 seed. The Rams actually still have a shot at the NFC West title. Who do you want to see running the ball? Or does it even matter in Los Angeles? It seems apparent that McVay's going to mix in both guys. We're going to get Michel, we're going to get Henderson, but who do you want to see as the starter if you're a Rams fan? Tell us on Twitter, tell us on gridironicon.com. Would love to hear what Rams fans think looking at the two running backs. Now, switching gears to the defensive side of the ball, there's no better news when you're going into a division opponent, even if it is the Seahawks in a down year, than to hear that Jalen Ramsey's going to play, that Von Miller's going to play, and big time tip of the cap to Von Miller for getting his first sack as a Los Angeles Ram. Nice work, Von. He was chasing around Russell on several plays last night. And then, of course, you've got a guy that I've just run out of superlatives. He's my favorite player. I don't think that's a big secret. Aaron Donald last night, again, chasing Russell Wilson all over the place as he does, getting a sack. He's at 11 sacks on the season. I recognize that there's guys having great seasons. Robert Quinn in Chicago should be in that combo. We've talked about Micah Parsons, the rookie. We've talked about Diggs in Dallas, the rookie, and his interception totals. TJ Watt doing what he does in Pittsburgh. Bosa, Myles Garrett. All of these guys are having amazing seasons. But folks, if you watch this game, look, I don't care if people think I'm a homer or biased or whatever. There's just nobody like number 99 in Los Angeles and what he does. He's just a game wrecker. He's turning Greg Gaines into a star. And that's not a dig on Gaines. Gaines is kind of play on defense in Los Angeles, chasing down Kyler Murray, chasing Russell Wilson, getting hits on him last night. But how anybody cannot see that that's a big, big piece of the benefits of playing with Aaron Donald is beyond me. So the Rams defense looked good last night. I thought Jalen Ramsey made some plays. And again, I'm honest, I'm balanced. Russell Wilson had some throws that were underthrown, that were deflected, that were defensed. But Jalen Ramsey literally, once again, and you saw him on the live feed during the game doing the rock the baby thing. And he speaks of a lot of respect for DK Metcalf, but he owns him at this point, folks. He does own him. And Jalen Ramsey's play last night was outstanding. Taylor Rapp finally gets a pick in the city where he grew up, playing at University of Washington when he was a Husky. So the Rams defense with a bunch of guys, even David Long had some moments last night as a backup corner. He had some shaky moments too, but he had some moments. But the Rams defense looks like it's starting to gel a bit. I do think it should be a concern to Rams fans everywhere that Raheem Morris still has a scheme where offensive coordinators can take their number one wide receiver, their number one weapon, and move them away from Jalen Ramsey. I still think that's an issue. I don't think that's a great strategy. And I'm praying that Raheem Morris and Sean McVay have some plan to address that as we get closer to the playoffs. But Rams defense, solid effort against a Seahawks team that was down tons of players, just tons of their best players. But even with that said, the Rams came to play on defense. So on the offensive side of the ball, folks, I just want to hear from Rams fans. Who do you want to see at running back? And who do you want to see as the starter toting the rock here as we do the December, January stretch into the playoffs? And all of us that are Rams fans crossing our fingers on an NFC West title. Flipping the script for a minute, just over to the Seahawks briefly. I got to tell you, the big question there, and I'd love to hear from Seahawks fans. Come on, 12th man, sound off on Twitter, Gridiron Icon, Instagram, wherever you find us. Have we seen or are we seeing Russell Wilson's farewell tour in Seattle? I just had a feeling watching that game last night that I was seeing Russell Wilson take on the Rams as a division opponent, probably for the last time. He just didn't look good. He didn't look like he was escaping the pocket and making some of those absolute highlight reel plays that he's been making for many years in Seattle. I want to stop short of saying that I don't know if he has the passion or the love anymore. I just think he's been beat up. He gets beat up. And Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, the Legion of Boom is gone. I just get the sense that we might be seeing the end of Russell Wilson's career in Seattle. What say you, Seahawk fans? Would love to hear. And the other question I have for Seahawk fans is how long before DK Metcalf absolutely implodes? Because you saw it on the sidelines last night. You saw it in his reaction to several missed throws from Russell Wilson. Jalen Ramsey was on him, but there was a couple plays where even the most loyal of Rams fans have to admit DK had beaten Ramsey, or he had beaten the coverage, and Russell wasn't able to hit him. So I got a feeling DK is one of our next, if he's not already, one of our next big wide receiver divas. Incredibly talented, but you could sense the frustration on him last night, and I think that's going to be an issue moving forward if Russell Wilson leaves and they don't have a really stellar veteran quarterback to come in and take over that role in Seattle. I think we're seeing the end of the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll era in Seattle. What say you, Seattle? What say you, Seahawk fans? Would love to talk about it. Okay, the other big game this past week, for me at least, and it seems like this has been a couple of weeks running now, but the fact of the matter is we're getting closer to the playoffs. So the teams that are separating themselves are becoming, they're becoming the subject matter. They're becoming the top thing to talk about here. But I want to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the fact that they lost to the New Orleans Saints, a gutted Saints team, a Saints team that's not playing with all of its best players on offense or defense. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers couldn't even muster a field goal. They lost to the Saints 9-0. And it's really the way they lost. Like, Tom Brady looked shook. He did not look good. That was the first time in 255 games that Tom Brady has been shut out, that he was unable to score a point. It was a scare. He wasn't able to score a point. That's nuts. Tom Brady, who many consider to be in the MVP conversation, wasn't able to score on the New Orleans Saints. And here's the thing. If you're Tom Brady, even minus Drew Brees, you don't want to see the New Orleans Saints again. They have been a problem. This is the fourth time in the row that the Saints, or that Tom Brady has lost to the Saints since he's been a Buccaneer. He really struggles with New Orleans. Now, head coach Allen for the night, who I think will be a head coach somewhere else next season, what really had a game plan in store for Tampa Bay. And of course, it didn't help that Leonard Fournette got hurt, that they're playing without Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. Nonetheless, he seemed to know exactly what he wanted to do to the Brady Buccaneers. And it's not a coincidence because he's been doing it now for several games. Tom Brady doesn't want anything to do with New Orleans. Here's some numbers for you to consider if you're a Buccaneers fan or you're just a football fan. The Saints have sacked Tom Brady 13 times in 2 seasons. No one else is even close. I believe the Falcons are the next closest with 7 sacks. But the Saints have gotten to Brady 13 times in 2 seasons. And what was going on with Cam last night? He was having a game for the ages. He was blowing up guards and tackles. Tampa just looked like they had no answers for Cam Jordan, and he was coming after the GOAT, Tom Brady, on every play. 13 sacks, 2 seasons, 4 games. That's unbelievable. They've sacked Tom Brady now 3 times in each game, except in this most recent clash where they actually sacked him 4 times. That's an incredible average. What do the New Orleans Saints have or know that the rest of the league seems to struggle with? Now, the Falcons have had some success, half as much success, rather, in sacks. The Rams have had some success. I'm going to call that the Aaron Donald factor and those outside linebackers. But the Saints have Brady's number. I mean, they just know what they want to do to him. So since the 2020 campaign, the beginning of the 2020 season, Brady has also thrown 8 interceptions against the New Orleans Saints. He's been picked off at least once in each of the last 4 games and has thrown multiple interceptions 3 of the 4 games against the Saints. So if you're apparently looking for a blueprint on how to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the upcoming playoffs, everybody should be pulling out New Orleans Saints tape or placing a call to Allen, and the defensive coordinator, or Sean Payton, and figuring out what is it that you guys seem to know and seem to have on Tom Brady that really rattles him. And here's another thing to think about. Not only have they gotten the sacks, not only has Tom Brady thrown a boatload of interceptions, threw in a pun there, but the Saints have also found a way to limit Brady's receivers, their yards after the catch, as well as the catch itself. They've had 23 passes defensed over 4 games. Deflections, strips, knocking the ball down, causing an incompletion. 23. So I ask you as a football fan or a Saints fan or a Bucs fan or whatever you are, what do the Saints have on Tom Brady that the rest of the league seems to struggle with? It's worth a conversation. You got to believe at this point. I mean, Belichick hasn't had this much success. Now, granted, they've only played once, okay? And the Patriots are a young rebuilding team, so to speak. But what is it that the rest of the league needs to tap into with the New Orleans Saints? I mean, the Saints have skilled players, defensive backs. They've got a nice line, Cam Jordan. Their linebackers are tacklers. But man, Tom Brady was pissed off. At one point, he's taking the Microsoft tablet and chucking it. He's mad. And here's something I want to ask you guys. Here's my question on this game. Well, there's 2 questions. What do the Saints have? Let's all talk about that. I want to know what it is the Saints have on Brady. And second, what is going on in the NFL? At one point, look, I know I'm going to get flooded with comments on this one. I know it. At one point, Brady is going over and dropping F-bombs, screaming at one of the Saints head coaches after he threw that interception. Folks, we've had people fined and penalized in games. What was the game where the player just looked over at the opposing team's bench and he was instantly penalized and fined? We've had guys just busted left and right for what they call taunting, if you even look a guy's direction. But Tom Brady's allowed to run over to the opposing team's sideline and scream down with expletives one of the Saints coaches who's clapping that he just threw a pick. Wait, this is not going to go well in the Tom Brady narrative. Like, can he just do anything compared to the rest of the league? We actually saw that on display in this game. We saw it on display. And it's absolutely mind-boggling that Brady's allowed to do these things seemingly without consequence, while everybody else, you just look over at the opposing team's bench and you're going to be fined. it's gotten ridiculous. I tell you what, the officiating or lack thereof it really has to be addressed in the off-season meetings, because this season has seen just unbelievable inconsistencies across the board. So what say you folks? Is Tom Brady just Teflon? It appears, as if any of us are shocked by that going back 20 years now. Okay. Nice segue into the way I want to close this week on our Wednesday chat. Let's talk NFL MVP race just briefly. This race is getting interesting. The NFL MVP race is truly starting to get interesting. And I think that there's a couple of dark horses I want to cover just briefly and throw into the ring. Let's just segue right into the MVP talk, though, with Tom Brady. Is he still in that talk? I mean, when you lay an egg 9-0 against a depleted New Orleans Saints team, and you've also actually lost to the Rams this season, and in both cases, Brady looked frustrated, but you can't get away from the numbers. So what say you about Tom Brady? Is he still the clear-cut forerunner, or favorite, I should say, for NFL MVP? His numbers are unbelievable. Look, I don't know if there's enough words at this point to talk about a guy that's over 40 doing this in the NFL. It's nuts. Okay, it's nuts. But Tom Brady has thrown 4,348 yards, 36 touchdowns, 11 picks, but his QBR at over 40 is 100.4. Is Tom our guy? If the season ended today, let's play that game. Let's play like the season is ending today. Is Tom Brady the MVP? Those numbers are really compelling. And I think it's important, though, even with those numbers, we got to throw out the age thing, because that just changes the conversation, because it's actually unreal to be doing that at his age. Let's move to the guy that I think might be edging him out in the favorite race right now, particularly because of the loss to New Orleans. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. 3,487 yards. So he's got almost 1,000 less passing yards at Brady. That's nuts. 30 touchdowns, only 4 picks. I mean, God, Aaron Rodgers is unbelievable with his interception to touchdown ratios. His whole career's that way, by the way. But his QBR at this point is 110.4. I'm leaning, if I'm talking about those two guys, to the current reigning NFL most valuable player, Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packer great. What say you? It's absolutely incredible to see both. Aaron Rodgers is in his late 30s. Brady's in his 40s. The guy I'm going to bring up here in a minute is in his 30s. It's really interesting at the quarterback position to see what these guys are doing at advanced ages in the NFL. And I don't know that we've seen it before with other players who were putting together great numbers at an advanced age, but I don't know if we've seen this many at once. So it's really an impressive time to be watching quarterback play in the NFL. So we've got, in my opinion, we've got Tom Brady's in the conversation. We've got Aaron Rodgers definitely in the conversation. I think at this point, he's my favorite, probably giving away the farm reveal too soon. What about Patrick Mahomes making a late push for most valuable player? 4,052 yards, 30 touchdowns, 13 picks. He's got a slightly less rating, 95.8, still impressive QBR. And the Chiefs have had their problems this year with injuries, COVID. Their defense really struggled early in the season, and Mahomes was in some shootouts, running around trying to score the ball. But there seems to be a late push. Patrick Mahomes, what he can do over the next couple weeks might make him a clear top 3 favorite. To me, I still think Aaron Rodgers is doing ridiculous things in Green Bay. And I want to keep it, Mahomes, I think, is in the conversation. I just don't think he's done enough to bypass Rodgers or Brady for that award. And I neglected to mention with Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, Rodgers has had a controversial season, the whole COVID thing, then the toe thing. I got to tell you, man, that guy is cool. Whether you love or hate Aaron Rodgers, he is cool. And to be doing this at this time in his career is amazing. So Mahomes is in the conversation. I just don't think he can bypass, at this point, mid-December, just prior to Christmas, I don't think he passes Rodgers or Brady for that award. Let's talk about Matthew Stafford. I think Stafford is the one guy in this MVP race that stands to benefit the most by the next few weeks. If he can put together a really explosive run, a couple of 3, maybe even a 4 touchdown game here and there, you got to be looking at what Matthew Stafford is doing in Los Angeles. And that's not my bias. I'm just talking facts that Stafford has to be part of this conversation. So on the season, he's thrown for 4,142 yards, 35 touchdowns, 10 picks. His quarterback rating is 108.2, just a nudge under Aaron Rodgers, but he's got more touchdowns, more yards, and he is clearly a cog in the machine in Los Angeles. So you've got to, if you're talking about Patrick Mahomes, and at this point, I'm thinking Patrick Mahomes is inching towards 4th place in this conversation. Matt Stafford's in that top 3 when you look at his numbers. And granted, folks, he's been 13, 14 games with this team. He's just starting to gel. They're just starting to peak in Los Angeles. Him and Cooper Kupp. He also lost Robert Woods. He's lost several offensive linemen. He lost Tyler Higbee. He lost his both starting running backs, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson. And Stafford's still been able to put up really impressive, explosive numbers. We also tip our hat to Matthew for being the quickest quarterback to 50,000 yards in NFL history last night against the Seahawks. Matthew Stafford's got to be part of the conversation. Let's talk dark horse, because we know those 4. I think those 4 are giveaways, and I don't see anybody else. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let's talk dark horse. Let's talk running back, and let's talk Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. What an incredible season he is putting together. With a few weeks to go, Jonathan Taylor has rushed for 1,518 yards. He's averaging 5.6 yards a carry. He's got 17 touchdowns. He's also got 36 receptions. 17 touchdowns with a few weeks to go, 1,500 yards. Now, I don't think he's going to threaten my guy, Eric Dickerson, in the 2105 season rushing mark. But Jonathan Taylor has to be under consideration in this most valuable player race. And it would really be fun to see a guy that's a non-quarterback win this award, because this has become basically a quarterback award. We all know it. Otherwise, I personally feel like Aaron Donald should have won this award a few times in the last 5 years on defense and defensive tackle. So Jonathan Taylor, what say you? Can he make a push for the MVP trophy? Can he push one of these quarterbacks off that pedestal? He's got a few weeks to go, and knock on wood, want him to stay healthy. God, he's fun to watch. He put the game away this last week with a walk-off run. And I think that you have to very seriously consider Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. He's been carrying that offense. Carson Wentz has not played great. He's hot or cold. So it would be a lot of fun, and I'm throwing him in there. I would throw him above Patrick Mahomes at this point. I think Jonathan Taylor needs to be part of the conversation. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to take a beating, and I don't think there's any chance whatsoever that he wins, because we just never see it. But I want to talk about my other dark horse, and that is, you guessed it, number 10 in Los Angeles, Cooper Kupp. We have rarely seen this, what he's doing this season, and there are a few weeks to go. And they're in a push for a division title. And they're in push for getting home field advantage. They'd love to get it. What Cooper Kupp is doing in Los Angeles at the wide receiver position is unbelievable. And you have to put him in that MVP conversation. As of last night's game, he has 122 receptions. He has 1,625 yards. He's got it on pace for just under 2,000. He's averaging 13 yards a catch, 14 touchdowns. But that doesn't even tell the whole story of Cooper Kupp. He's got 5 games this season with 2 touchdowns. 5 games with 2 touchdowns. He is very close to the receiver triple crown, which is very elite company, the Calvin Johnsons, the Jerry Rices. He is the only wide receiver in history with 10 straight games with 90 yards receiving or more. He stands alone in that category. And I want to say congratulations to him, because last night he passed Hall of Famer Isaac Bruce for the Rams, all-time season receptions leader. Ike had 119 catches. Cooper, with weeks to go, is sitting at 122. When you look at what Cooper Kupp is doing at the wide receiver position with lots of injuries, losing his fellow wide receiver, Robert Woods, we've got a rookie coming in playing that role in Ben Skowronek. And it's clear that Matt Stafford trusts him. It's clear that Matt Stafford looks for him. Jared Goff did too. Kupp is special. He's very special. Can Cooper Kupp make a run at the MVP trophy? Has there ever been, or is there a chance that he can nudge his way into knocking off a quarterback for this award? Because those numbers are sick. They're ridiculous, and the season isn't even over yet. Much like Jonathan Taylor, what they're doing at their respective positions puts them in the conversation for MVP. I'm bullish on it. I want to see somebody different win something. And I think if Cooper Kupp can keep this pace up, 5 games this season with 2 TDs, if he goes another 2-3 games with 2 TDs, that's ridiculous, folks. It's just ridiculous numbers. Can we consider a wide receiver as NFL MVP? Tell us. Shoot me a tweet. Put something on Facebook at Gridiron Icon. I would love to get your thoughts. So there's my bucket for National Football League Most Valuable Player as of right now, just a few days away from Christmas, a Thursday night game tomorrow night. I've got Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, and in dark horses in Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp. Tell me if you agree or disagree. We're going to talk a lot about this over the next couple of weeks because I think Taylor and Kupp are going to put up all-time numbers at their position. And isn't it time that it's an MVP award, not just a quarterback award? Come on, let's have some fun with this. I was preaching the same thing for Aaron Donald on defense. So that's it this week for Gridiron Icon. Those were some of my thoughts after a week's worth of games and a weird schedule this week. Would love to hear from you. Really appreciate if you like and subscribe at Gridiron Icon on YouTube. If you want to see this face, I lost the goatee. It's coming back. I'm horrified. Let's just put that out there right now. I'm scared. I was told I look like a turtle today. I'm not sure how to take that. I'm going to work on that right now. Come on, facial hair, come back. But if you'd like and subscribe, really appreciate that on YouTube as we grow Gridiron Icon. As I've mentioned in past weeks, we're going to get back into interview format with some players and coaches. Really excited to do that, lining some up now to start 2022 strong as we build that format, which is Gridiron Icon, and that's talking to the icons. No one wants to talk to me. So let's look forward to that. And subscribe there on YouTube as mentioned. You can follow us on all the podcasting networks, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, you name it. Please go follow us there. And we like feedback. Don't be afraid to give us your yay, your nay, and anything you agree or disagree with. So, folks, I want to thank you again for following us weekly on Gridiron Icon. I'm going to finish the tea now. Enjoy the games this weekend. We've got some big ones coming up. And let's all, hope that we have a good, healthy weekend and get this COVID protocol nightmare behind us in all of pro sports, but certainly in our favorite, which is the NFL. So thanks again for joining us this week on Gridiron Icon, and follow us also on gridironicon.com. We will see you next week. Thanks again.